Welcome po sa Kabayan in Kuwait. Huwag kalimutan mag-like, comment and subscribe. Maraming salamat po.
And it's quite tough because the train just started moving, so you're having to clean as the train is moving so that, you save some time. So the train has just pulled up at the station, and in fact, they're getting passengers back in again. So that's why you got to clean super fast.
And it can last about 180 days. Yeah.
But can they really keep our public transport free of COVID-19?
For the bus stop buttons, we saw that it was around 20 plus, and for the bus windows, we see around 20, and same goes for the bus hang handles, we saw about 20 as well. But if you talk about the bus grab poles, right, and they are measuring about 100 RLU. It's in the cautionary range. I think the coating has its limitations. It is not something which is foolproof, because what if somebody were to soil the surface during their trip, they are actually blocking the surface coating from acting against these viruses, or maybe some wearing rings or holding something hard object. They will definitely scratch off the coating, and the coating will not last in these surfaces for that period of time.
If I'm wearing the mask correctly, and so is everybody else, even I stand close to you, the risk is very, very small. The trouble is, people don't wear it correctly. If everyone sticks to this rule, we actually don't need the safe distancing. We'll be as good as 99.7% effective in preventing COVID spread.
The COVID-19 pandemic is sweeping across the globe. Many countries and regions have gone into lockdown, confining people to their homes and drastically reducing economic and social activities. In many places, road traffic has halted and passenger airplanes stay grounded. Some effects of these radical changes on our planet were visible in only a few weeks. From orbit, the European fleet of Copernicus satellites have observed these rapid changes. From the waters of the Venice Lagoon clearing up, to changes in our atmosphere, where a swift reduction in NO2 concentration has occurred, especially in regions which have gone into lockdown.
So with Sentinel-5P of our Copernicus program, we have observed actually quite some stunning images of concentrations of NO2. NO2 is one of the gases that is created directly by people through traffic and industry, and these are really the main polluting sources. And interesting fact of NO2 is that it is a gas that is relatively short-lived. It lives for half a day, roughly, a few hours, and therefore it can be directly traced to the pollution source, that means traffic and industry, where it is produced. More recent measurements of NO2 of end of March, early April, have shown that over several cities in Europe, which have been heavily affected by the lockdown after the coronavirus restrictions have been applied, that these values are going down by about 50%.
By measuring concentrations of NO2 from space, ESA and its scientific partners can indirectly determine the impact of corona measures on industrial and economic activity. Over major cities across the globe, a massive reduction in NO2 has been recorded whenever a lockdown has been put in place. In Los Angeles, for example, the famous smog has disappeared, and in regions in India, the peaks of Himalayas can be seen again for the first time in a generation. Other regions, for instance in Eastern Europe, industrial activity has continued, and these are visible from space, as they do not show a reduction in NO2 pollution. The reduction of NO2 pollution is in itself good news, as it does affect people's health. NO2 is known to cause respiratory problems and aggravate underlying conditions such as asthma. However, today the reduction in air pollution comes at a very severe cost in terms of economic growth, mental well-being, and disposable income, with millions of people confined to their homes and even losing their jobs. So this drastic reduction is not a sustainable one. But as countries are now preparing to restart their economies with massive stimulus packages, there might be a choice to do things differently.
There it is very important that we are using this momentum, but also this situation, seeing clear skies today and hearing the birds outside our windows, that we realize how important it is to preserve our planet, our nature, and therefore do the investments of the stimulus package in a way that they are sustainable and they are still in line, in harmony with our planet one way or another.
It's estimated that air pollution in general causes over 500,000 premature deaths in Europe every year. And cleaner air is certain to be beneficial for our health. So as we battle the COVID crisis, we should try to innovate and shape our world for a better tomorrow. From space, ESA will continue to give us the data we need to take the pulse of our planet and act on it.
Let's talk about how devastating coronavirus has been for global trade. Of course, we know the impact that there's been on the supply chain. How long is, in your sense, until things are actually going to return to normal? Or I guess that's anyone's guess. And will things ever return to normal?
Well, I think, first of all, I don't think things will return to normal as we've known them, over the past couple of decades. Some major changes underway right now. One is strategic goods, strategic products. If you look at things like pharma, if you look at, obviously, the issue with the face masks being manufactured in China, not being in ample supply. If you look at the fact that about 70 to 80% of the content of cold and flu medicine, the ingredients, actually come from China and India. Those are very strategic goods now that are going to have to be moved, ring-fenced. So we're going to see, I think, massive restructuring of supply chains.
Of course, we've had the effective closure of global borders, the effective halt of globalization, particularly in the last few days, and this continues as countries work to continue preventing people from overseas coming in. What is that going to mean for global trade, and also, I guess, perhaps the psychology of globalization going forward?
Well, it just means that this phenomenon of localization, which has already been underway over the past 2 or 3 years, certainly the trade war, the US-China trade war has spurred that on. That phenomenon will now accelerate. So where there was decoupling around strategic national security issues and technologies, those supply chains will restructure and more localization will occur. One of the things that's very important here to note is that companies are going to be looking more and more to automate manufacturing processes, and to speed up that localization process, they're going to be looking to put in robotics, much more automated manufacturing, and be less vulnerable to pandemics that affect, of course, human labor and human capital.
Yeah, absolutely. Hadley.
Alex, it's Hadley out in Abu Dhabi. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a fascinating time just from the perspective of geopolitics, the history here, especially coming off the back of this first phase of the trade deal and so much momentum behind that ahead of that coronavirus outbreak. When you think about this a little bit more further down the road, you're mentioning automation. What do you think that this means in the end for jobs, particularly when it comes to the United States? Because we are talking about an election cycle in spite of the fact that you've got the coronavirus crisis impacting not just the economy, but obviously the politics as well. Do you see a significant change in the job outlook for the United States there? Would we see jobs repatriated, companies looking closer to home as part of that decoupling?
Absolutely. That, as I said, that decoupling process is now going to accelerate. One of the things that really became apparent with COVID-19 is the rapid change that's occurred in terms of the critical mass of value chains that have built up in China from, say, 2003 when we had SARS to 2019, where China went from being 4% of global GDP to almost 20% of global GDP. Most of that is you can attribute to foreign direct investment and multinationals moving a lot of their value chains into China. So that is now in sharp reversal. That is in sharp focus. Those companies are now going to be looking at ring fencing and localizing, and that's going to mean more jobs in the States. The balance, though, between human capital and artificial intelligence, robotics and people, that has yet to play out, and that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be that many more jobs that are going to materialize